All right, perfect. So let's start. So welcome to the last Into the Block webinar of 2022. And what year this has been, like full of crazy stories and interesting scenarios. So today we're gonna spend the next half an hour talking about changes in DeFi and opportunities in DeFi in light of the recent market events. And what I want to do is literally walk you through all sorts of theses in terms of given the existing market dislocation that is probably once in a generation type of event, what are the biggest opportunities and challenges for DeFi, practically speaking? I'm going to try to stay away from trivializing anything. And probably this is an area that, because of our work in quantitative strategies, DeFi, we spend a lot of time thinking about. And I'm going to try to present some of those theories and go relatively deep into it and try to stay away from trivial arguments. And also then we have some ideas that are more in terms of products that could be built to address some of these challenges. And my idea here is to essentially force you to think in terms of the opportunities and challenges in DeFi in the current market, which has completely drastically changed from, like, if we had a DeFi agenda before FTX Alameda Genesis, now we should probably have a different one. Before that, I want to give you a quick update about it. Into the blog, we had a very strong year, all things considered. Both our analytics products performed very well, and obviously you saw that we finally were able to disclose and announce some of the work that we have been doing in quantitative DeFi strategies and intelligent financial services for DeFi, and that has gone extremely well. Beginning of next year, beginning like actually January, we are going to be announcing new products in this category. In the last 3 weeks since we had our latest webinar, another customer went live, Swipe, that is an on-ramp for crypto assets. It was it launched some of our indicators in the interface. Now we're not done yet before the end of the year. So, we also did a minor release that incorporated about a dozen new indicators, particularly in the area of ownerships, quantifying, qualifying ownership in digital assets. We've released quite a few new indicators there. There are a couple of nice blog posts in the Into the Blog Medium blog that describe this in detail, and I believe an email was sent with to our community. We're not done yet. So next week, we're gonna be releasing a new sort of a renewed version of our Cardano analytics. It's something that we had in the platform. We had to stop because there was some very serious issues with the data, the way that we were collecting the data in the Cardano blockchain. We re-engineered the whole thing, and we're gonna relaunch it with a lot of new analytics and data sets. The Cardano community has been super supportive about this. We're also gonna add about a dozen new indicators to the platform, and we're gonna provide a preview of something that we have been working on in terms of DeFi risk monitoring. That is a subset of sort of the work that we do to protect our quantitative strategies in DeFi. So we still have a few interesting weeks ahead of us before the year ends. And that's sort of the bulk of my update in terms of Into the Block. So let's deep dive into the topic of the webinar. By the way, at any given time, feel free to use the Q&A and the chat for questions. I will stop and answer questions throughout the webinar. So the biggest point that I'm trying to drive across in this webinar is that there is a brand new set of opportunities and challenges for DeFi in light of the recent market events. So the collapse of Alameda and the situation that is happening with Genesis in particular opens all sorts of a brand new canvas for for DeFi in terms of new products that could be created and new areas of the market that we should be thinking of expanding on. Let's qualify that a little bit. So when we think about how the market composition before Genesis, FTX, Alameda, and now the collapse of these institutions has created some things that could be considered existential challenges to DeFi. Like a lot of people talk about this is DeFi moment to China and all that, and that's just very conceptually, but you shouldn't ignore that there's some major challenges in the ecosystem. One is some of the biggest financial primitives that we use just disappear, right? Genesis was a lender of last resort in the space, and it's not there anymore. It might be there in the future, but right now it's not there. Then the number of participants in DeFi, the number of participants in crypto in general has decreased, and we never seen so many financial services providers collapsing at the same time. So this is a brand new event, even from the perspective of any financial market. Also, trust in centralized institutions is at an all-time low, and then the barrier of entry to crypto is considerably higher than it was before. And these are systemic challenges, right, to the entire ecosystem. Now, if we drill down just a little bit, there are all sorts of areas of the market that are hurting right now. So credit by far is the one that has been damaged the most. Obviously, with Genesis not being able to operate, it's very complex. Market makers need to borrow capital, and now they don't have access to it. Volumes in exchanges are at a multi-year low. Lending is very complicated right now. The stablecoin supplies are pretty much static. And then if you're trying to raise capital in this environment, it's fundamentally difficult. So the obvious idea is that DeFi has been one of the areas of the ecosystem that has been somewhat resilient to this market changes. So it might this dislocation might create a very unique opportunity for DeFi to China. Ultimately, DeFi can be a beneficiary of the current market dislocation, but it's when you start drilling into the how, that is an area that we spend a lot of time on, is far from trivial, because DeFi is hurting too. So maybe the protocols are not collapsing, but the participants in the ecosystem collapse. So as a result, TVL is at a multi-year low. Entire ecosystems like Terra and all that have disappeared, and there's some others like Phantom that are seriously hurt. So that's really critical. And then there is a ton of protocols that only operated on the premise of having this proportional incentive, and that's not viable anymore. So what's going to happen to those ecosystems once those incentives are not there anymore is something that is not trivial to figure out. One analogy that I've been using is a really bad analogy, but somehow I like it a lot. That I've been using a lot is because I like philosophy a lot. So comparing this to the Enlightenment period, that it was this period, a few decades in the history of philosophy in which pretty much everything that we knew about religion and politics and art and science were challenged, putting science as a key principle, right, to derive our understanding of the world. And I sometimes compare crypto to that, but the thing about the Enlightenment is that it got fractured, right? There were two big schools of thought: the rationalism with people like Spinoza or Descartes, and the empiricism so the rationalists believed that they could just figure out everything by thinking, and the empiricists believed that you needed to experiment, and you have people like John Locke. And these two schools completely fractured the movement until somebody like Immanuel Kant came and tried to reconcile the two, and obviously became one of the biggest philosophers in history. We need sort of a Kant principle right? To reconcile everything that we're experiencing right now between CeFi and DeFi. So bottom line, yes, I agree, is DeFi moment to shine, but how, right? The solutions are not very obvious right now. So one suggestion that I have is you're gonna read in the press and all that, a lot of trivial BS. So we should avoid that. So let me tell you what the answer is not. So the answer to the DeFi next generation DeFi is not regulation, which is something that people are talking about a lot. It's not better user experience and better on-ramp. All that is needed. Yeah, regulation is somewhat needed. On-ramps are needed. The user experience needs to improve. We have solutions for all of that. So that's trivial stuff that we're gonna get there. Better yields, yeah, okay, great. So we had a DeFi summer based on yields. The answer is not better yields. So all the stuff, there is mechanisms in place to solve, but that's not gonna create the next DeFi summer. It's not gonna unlock the next wave of innovation in DeFi. So we need to think about the biggest and non-trivial, where are the biggest opportunities that are really hard to solve and that are non-trivial, but also that we can unlock solutions with the technologies that we have today. And there is a ton of those, right? It's not one or two. Like, we spend a lot of time thinking about this. In the next 10, 15 minutes, I want to walk you through a few of these, and hopefully that will foment some debate. So let's start. So there is all sorts of areas that from credit to capital efficient to we need to solve bridging once for all. So we need to adopt regulation in a smart way. There is all sorts of things that need to be solved to make DeFi sort of the center of the crypto ecosystem. Now, a controversial idea here is that if we don't solve more of the majority of those, DeFi might be a second-class citizen in crypto and lost all the potential. So you don't have, it's not like we have a lot of luxury of what to solve or not. Like right now, this is very critical. And it's just hard to imagine an ecosystem without credit, without somewhat of a regulatory umbrella, without capital efficiency. It's never going to scale. So let's try to break it down one by one and see what the challenge is and what the real opportunities is. Credit is by far the biggest opportunity in the current market. DeFi credit is fundamentally over-collateralized. That's just the way it works. And you cannot over-collateralize everything. But now you have the situation in which lending reputation of lenders is at an all-time low. So DeFi should be able to benefit from that, but then the under-collateralized options that we have played with, they haven't been exactly a success story. So under-collateralized, semi-collateralized lending has to be solved, must be solved in DeFi. So now there are things that are there are potential solutions here, not to the whole thing, but areas that you can start iterating with. One is to have robust underwriters, right? If you can bring the credit entities that underwrite massive deals in the real world to work on DeFi rails with the right level of incentive, that start bringing credit back into the ecosystem. If you convince somebody like Apollo to underwrite deals and try to finance part of those deals with DeFi pools, that's interesting. Also, there is a lot of things that are visible on chain, right? There is a staking, there's mining, there are things that are visible on chain that you can lend to and start bringing credit a little bit back. And a lot of this is possible today. Another challenge that we have is capital efficient. Sorry, I'm going to go super fast for this because we try to keep this webinar to 30 minutes, and there is a lot of content to cover. Capital efficiency. Yeah, AMMs are a great innovation, but they're like incredibly inefficient for capital vehicle for capital formation compared to order books and things like that. Over collateralized lending is the definition of inefficiency in terms of lending. And then, given that volumes in DeFi, in CeFi are on a multi-year low, there is a ton of opportunities for increasing capital efficiency in DeFi. So we just need to build protocols that have capital efficiency as a first-class construct. There are a few ideas here. So hybrid AMMs, there are a few that have come to light. AMMs that combine order book dynamics with traditional AMM dynamics, right? There is ideas that we have discussed about having AMMs that have multiple capital formation formulas, so it doesn't have to be like Uniswap, like X plus Y equals K. It could be that, and it could be another one that works for different pools. You can have different pools with different AMM constructs, and that helps with capital efficiency. And we also need leverage, right? Like we need participants that provide leverage in the ecosystem. I know leverage has a bad reputation given everything that happened with 3AC and all that, but no financial market works without leverage. So we need to build that back. Then there is a problem of interoperability. Everybody wants to build a bridge. This is like everybody trying to build TCP/IP, right? Or build any interoperability protocol that we use, or build new REST standards or GraphQL standards. So the interoperability ecosystem, instead of helping, is hurting because it's completely fragmented. On the other side, the opportunity is that it creates a massive alpha opportunities of capturing asymmetries between different blockchains. So what the sensible thing to do here is consolidate the effort on a small number of trusted bridges, right? Who are the best platforms? Well, who are the layer zeros and Wormhole and Flare that have the capabilities that have a ton of infrastructure in terms of bridging? We should try to consolidate on those and make sure that those protocols are extensible enough that you can plug in new L1s and L2s, right? And then the way you do this indirectly is if we start building products that do cross-chain swaps, cross-chain arbitrage, and all that could bring financial gains based on interoperability organically, you get the ecosystem gravitating towards those bridges. And that's sort of a gamified way to address this issue. Then there is insurance. So insurance in DeFi, it remains a mostly gamified thing, and it's also focused on technical insurance, on hacks. And at some point, hacks are not going to be very common. I mean, if we believe that DeFi protocols are going to be getting hacked forever, we should all go and do something else, right? But we're working on an ecosystem that should improve over time, so hacks are not going to become that important. Economic risk is gonna remain very important. So there is a massive opportunity for creating insurance models for DeFi protocols, particularly on the economic risk of DeFi protocols. So instead of insuring a protocol like Curve, how about we insure positions, right? A hedge fund is taking a specific positions in Curve. Why couldn't I be able to insure those positions? That's how insurance works in capital markets. Also, then how about protocols that build insurance primitive natively into the protocol? I think there's some like Bancor and all that play with ideas of protecting against impermanent loss. Not exactly successful, but there were some good ideas there that we should encourage and explore more. A byproduct of insurance is risk management. So risk management in DeFi remains a smart contract audits and risk, and we know how well those work, right? Where we keep getting incidents every other month. Now, risk management in DeFi is essential for institutional adoption. No large institution deploys large amounts of capital into DeFi without proper risk management. This is what we do. This is the area that we spend a lot of time, like creating quantitative models for risk. So we should try to democratize that, and that every participant in DeFi has access to risk monitoring and risk management for the ecosystem that they're participating on. So an opportunity in the market today is real-time economic risk monitoring, like having risk alerts and indicators that are monitoring all sorts of economic conditions. And economic risk is impermanent loss, is exposure to whales, is liquidity outflows. This is stuff that makes you lose money in these things every single day. And eventually, we think that some protocols are going to build native risk components into the protocol itself that doesn't have to be provided by a third party. Then we have yields, right? So yields in DeFi for the majority were a byproduct of incentive that didn't quite correlate to the value that protocols brought to the table, and that was all good. But now it has to change. The beauty of it is that DeFi is such an asymmetric ecosystem in which the alpha opportunities they exist and are fully available. So we need ways to construct organic yields, sustainable yields into DeFi. One of them is cross-chain asymmetry. So there is a lot of asymmetries between protocols on different chains. If we can capture that, you provide a way to translate that into market neutral yields. The other way is how yields work in the real world, right? The banks provide yields because they lend money to businesses and they provide certain interest. DeFi today is a crypto to crypto. I call it a pillow fight, right? It's a world playing with each other here. Eventually, you need to cross a bridge to bring real world utility into DeFi, and that will provide organic yields. So speaking of that, I think real utility is one of the biggest opportunities in DeFi today. Everything that we have been doing in DeFi is financial primitive, by and large. And many of these protocols, and I hope I'm not offending anybody because we're users of them, of the biggest ones, they don't provide any utility. Like if they disappear tomorrow, no use case will be affected. So we need to combine that. The innovation on the finance side is important, but we need to combine that with participants that are creating real utility in the market. And there's some already, right? There are two trends that are very visible. One is gaming, right? There is a lot of value that is being transferred from gaming into the DeFi ecosystem. So providing more DeFi primitives that allow financial management of gaming interactions is super interesting. And the second one is all these trends of X to earn, which play to earn is one of them in gaming, but there are others, right? One that I'm very bullish on is education, learn to earn, right? Because companies spend a ton of money in education. So if you can provide incentive to that, and there are very good companies thinking about this problem, it unlocks massive opportunity, and that's real utility. Is people are learning, they're getting jobs, they're creating, and they're being compensated, and you're linking an education market to DeFi. Then we need bridges to traditional finance. So again, crypto DeFi has been a crypto to crypto market. That's impossible to grow. You can only grow so much playing with the same within the same ecosystem. At some point, you need to cross the bridge into traditional finance vehicle, but given the pressures in the macro environment in which alpha is absent everywhere, there is a ton of interesting opportunities to enable financial services on top of DeFi rails. So credit is a massive opportunity in that sense. Maker has been a pioneer in this space, trying to extend loans to banks so they can lend to their clients, and Maker is a participant on that. And then there is ETPs, right? Exchange traded products in which you can have, let's say that you can package DeFi yields in an ETP in a friendly jurisdiction and offer that to public market investors. You start getting the traditional finance participants into using financial services powered by DeFi rails. Somebody's going to have to do that. The opportunity there is massive. Then we have all sorts of opportunities with primitive that we still need to build, right? Everything today in DeFi, the vast majority of it is market making and lending. And obviously that constrains the financial use cases. There is a lot more that has to be built. So iterating on this is another opportunity in the market. Derivative is a fascinating space. We need derivative for DeFi to work. Most derivative protocols haven't been very successful, but there has been a ton of innovation in the space. And there's some like Ribbon that are getting real traction, and we should see more. Now, the more interesting, one area that I consider that we don't spend enough time on, and it's a shame because is primitives that are unique to DeFi. right? Before this webinar, I was talking to one of our customers that is this DeFi protocol, and he was showing me something that they're going to do, release in Q1 that is something like this, right? Like it's a primitive that is unique to DeFi and doesn't exist in the real world. The canonical example of this is flash loans. Flash loans is something that you can only do in DeFi. We should build more of those. Right? You can think about insurance policies that get paid on the fly in one transaction, that I get a policy for doing something and I pay it back. Like there is all sorts of things that you can do in DeFi that doesn't make any sense in the real world, but that's what the magic of DeFi lies upon. So we should invest more on that. Then let's address the elephant in the room, right? Everybody's, because of the collapse of FTX, Alameda, Disclosure, Celsius, and all that, everybody's talking about regulation. So regulation might be needed, but it's really risky if the ecosystem doesn't do anything and regulation gets applied by brute force, KYC, AML. I've been very vocal on this and published a couple of articles on this. I think rather than help, it's going to hurt innovation. So it might be smart to get ahead of this. And there's some things that you can do, given that everything in DeFi is visible on chain, to get ahead of regulation. So for instance, you can build regulatory scores by analyzing addresses on pools and participants. So if no address or a small percentage, nobody's linked to financial sanctions and things like that, you can issue a statistical significant regulatory picture of the pool that gives you a regulatory compliance score. And then everybody talks about KYC, AML, but instead of forcing it, you can incentivize it. You can have permission pools that you issue more incentive for people to participate on those. And that's a smart way to start addressing some of these things. Then those are some of the areas that we think there is a ton of opportunity. There is more, right? But we only have 30 minutes, but those are some of the biggest ones. And the market opportunities are just massive to innovate on this, particularly in a time in which the CeFi ecosystem is really hurting. But let's talk about market timing, because there is we have an interesting thesis about this that is related to how technology adoption moves in market cycles. So everybody talks about bear markets is a time to build. Now, how to do that is not very trivial either, because if you have a company that is working and you enter a bear market, your intuition is to try to adjust what you're doing, and whatever is not got to build new product. Trust me, like we launched new products in the middle of this mess, and it was not. It was a tough decision, tough call to make, and we'll see if it was actually the right call or not. So the thing is that when the market turns in a bull market cycle, the adoption gravitates towards established technology, not towards new technology. So the established technology today is centralized vehicles, right? DeFi is sort of the innovation. If we don't build during this time, by the time the market turns, the adoption is going to gravitate towards CeFi, not towards DeFi. And that's a very important point from the market, from how to think about these problems from the market conditions, because it's all very nice to try to build in a bull market. Capital is available, you can raise money, you can do this. What you don't get is the adoption cycle, like the massive adoption cycle, the hyper adoption cycle, right? So typically you need to invest in this bear market, build those building blocks, start getting adoption, and when the market turns, you can capitalize off that. If not, what's going to happen is you're going to see more volume going to centralized exchanges. You're going to see the lenders recover and all that, and then DeFi does not benefit from it as it should. So just to summarize, because I think I was able to do this quite on time, DeFi is incredibly well positioned to take advantage of the current market dislocation. We might never see a market dislocation like this. It's a multi-generation phenomenon. So, you know, it's painful, but there is a ton of opportunities. Now, the how is far from trivial, right? Everybody can see the macro trend, but the how is not very clear. Credit, capital efficiency mechanism, risk management, TradFi bridges, those seem to be sort of more obvious. opportunity, and then the innovation cycle must happen before the next bull cycle. I'm gonna move to questions that I have a few, but then this is the last webinar of the year. We're gonna start next year doing a recap, providing you a lot of on-chain visibility into what happened. Last year, just to remind you how painful it was, kind of thing, a depressing note to start the year sort of thing. So on January 11th, our head of research, Lucas Otomura, is going to be talking about the bear market from the perspective of a lot of on-chain data and analytics. So the link to this webinar is on the chat. So please register. There are a few people complimenting, saying impressive presentation, all that. Thank you very much. We actually spent quite a bit of time thinking about this. So hopefully some of the ideas were helpful. And then Cesar is asking, how do you protect users of DeFi protocols from bad actors from assessing the bridges security measures? So how do we protect users from being hacked on bridges? Building better bridges. That's sort of the answer, right? So you built a lot of security. At some point, I think the space is going to win that race. Like in every technology market, there is a cybersecurity component to it, and eventually protections become very good. So I don't think in a multi-year cycle we're gonna see the level of hacks, the frequency of hacks that we're seeing today. What we're seeing is a lot of protocols launching very quickly. There is a lot of immaturity in the technologies, a lot of forking and things like that, and that opens the door to vulnerabilities. And obviously, the blockchain is a very technical ecosystem, so there is a very good hackers in the space that eventually, if you're an optimist, you have to think that that's going to go away, that there's going to be few and far between. If not, we're just building the wrong thing. This is my contact info in case you wanna follow up. And then Hem Desai is asking, do you consider the possibility of DeFi for that matter and that the entire DeFi ecosystem shut down? Yeah, of course. We actually run quantitative strategies on DeFi. So do we consider the whole thing could go away? Yes, we did it, but the resiliency of the ecosystem has been remarkable. At this point, I'm more bullish and it's not going anywhere type of thing, particularly because trust in centralized institutions is at an all-time low. Philosophically speaking, DeFi is the one thing in crypto that encompasses the true ethos of the ecosystem. Like it or not, it's decentralized, it's transparent, it's about inclusion, meritocracy, no clubs type of thing. So we should all be rooting for this thing to work. But that's my philosophical opinion. It's not a market signal. The market signal is most of those protocols work really well in the middle of this crisis. The centralized space is at an all-time low. So I think DeFi, and most people agree that transparency, visibility is key for the ecosystem to evolve. So DeFi is not going anywhere from what I can tell from my vantage point right now. Any suggestions from audit tools to verify balances and financial statements in DeFi? The majority of them really sucks. It's hard. There is a company, full disclosure, I'm an investor that I'm invested because I think it's a massive problem. It's called Tres Finance, like TRES. It's a team in Israel. They have incredible traction early on, and they're trying to solve the accounting problem, particularly for DeFi. So I'm not sure if the team is on the webinar, but nice plug there. What do you think about the proof of reserve solvency? Does it work? Not the one. So what do I think? I think the best solution to this problem is what Vitalik wrote on the Merkle tree solution that Vitalik posted a few months ago. I think the existing, just I'm gonna publish my wallet and all that is highly insufficient not to call it BS. I mean, you can publish what the wallets are, but you're not publishing liabilities and other exposure that you have. That's highly insufficient. So and we are raising, some of the some effects on that. I think Vitalik had some really interesting ideas in this area, and I believe a few players are already implementing that, so it's likely to get better. Okay, cool. So I think that's all. Those were all the questions. So thank you very much for joining. I hope you have a blessed holiday and a happy new year. And I hope to see you in the first webinar of 2023. Thank you very much.